Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jason, Legacy of the Void Hayes, and his amazing, talented Liberty Swarm of Terran Protons. We also would have accepted Jason and the Zergonauts. They will be back to play more for you, so please stick around. Everyone, my name is Russell Brower. I'm the Senior Director of Audio and one of the composers of Blizzard's Entertainment. And thank you. It is my extreme pleasure to introduce to you our panel this year, and I want to thank you because without all of you, we wouldn't have a sound panel almost every BlizzCon. It's because of your feedback that we get to keep coming back and sharing this with you. So thank you so much. For today's festivities, I'd like to introduce our panel. First off, actually I have to say, my life for ire! Okay, with that out of the way, first of all, the sound supervisor of the project, Mr. Evan Chen. Evan? Senior sound designer of the project, Mr. Ed Serrato. Ed, join us. And the amazing senior sound designer, Lawrence Peacock. Take it away, you guys. Hope you enjoy.
Thanks a lot, Rex. BlizzCon 2015! Saturday morning. I think that makes you the most loyal and dedicated StarCraft 2 fans. Thank you all for attending the sound panel. My name is Evan Chen. I'm the honored, it's an honor for me to be the sound supervisor of this awesome game, Legacy of the Void. Thank you so much for attending. Many people helped contribute to the sound of this game. We've got in addition to the fine gentlemen up here, we have the amazing Blizzard Sound Department, the awesome StarCraft 2 development team, QA, localization, external contractors and vendors, and plenty of others. They all deserve a big thanks. And thanks to all of you, our amazing, passionate StarCraft 2 community, for always keeping us on our toes. So thank you very much. Enough chatter, let's take a look at what we've been up to.
Meet Kayla's squeeze toy.
Different things.
Okay. It's a real challenge to work on Legacy of the Void. It's hard work. It's like working on a Hollywood motion picture at the same time as we're working on a game. One day, we're designing sounds for units, tiny little units on your screen from a top-down perspective, to function as responsive gameplay feedback. And then the next day, this same unit that we're designing sounds for is now towering over you in your face. Oftentimes, these sounds have to be heard over the chaos of huge, large, just crazy battles. And at the same time, they have to all fit within the sonic sensibilities of the StarCraft 2 universe. Yes, it's a challenge, but it's also one of the most rewarding and exciting and thrilling games to work on, and it's a real privilege to be a part of it. So, let's take a look at some sounds. First up, sounds for cutscenes. These are the in-game, real-time rendered cutscenes. It's different than the pre-rendered cinematics that a different audio team does at Blizzard, led by the amazingly talented sound supervisor Paul Manichini. Luckily for us, he shares their sounds with us. Yay! And so in this upcoming video, you're going to see an elaborately choreographed melee fight sequence. And it's one of the most complex for audio, as you'll see by the sheer number of audio tracks in this video. Here we go. Okay. Let's break down some of the layers that went into that cutscene. First up, the Zerg creature vocalizations. We typically start with animal recordings. We'll edit, pick out the best parts, process them to make them sound the way we want. For this cutscene right here, this is excerpt right here. Okay, so that consisted of a horse. Here's the sound of that horse. A dog. A seal. And we always like to try something a little less obvious. In this case, it was a cappuccino machine maker, the frothing, steaming one inside of a cup. Okay, and so here it is, just the vocalizations isolated by themselves. See if you can pick out what you just heard in this next video. All right. Next up, the Psi Blade Sweeteners. The Psi Blade is just an amazing sound. I love this sound. It was originally created by Paul Manichini. Hi, Paul, there you are. For Wings of Liberty. And for Legacy of the Void, the characters tend to move around and gesture with these Psi Blades. So we had to create some more kind of nuanced sounds for these. I call them Psi Blade Sweeteners. So here's the excerpt I'll be talking about. Okay. So notice that in this shot, Artanis actually has two Psi Blades. How do we differentiate between the two? We can't just duplicate the same sound twice, otherwise it'll sound like one big gigantic mushy Psi blah. So the right hand Psi Blade actually uses the original Psi Blade sound. The left hand, I tried to recreate that buzziness in the original sound, which was created by an old Korg Z1 synthesizer, thank you. This was like a didgeridoo, like hum and a buzz. So what I ended up with was a portable back massager inside, working the inside of a torch lamp, recorded with a contact microphone, which is a special type of microphone that just records sounds through vibrating objects. So here's the raw sound by itself. And once we have that raw sound, we'll edit, mix, process the heck out of it. This video will show you what I did. Okay, and oh, thank you, thank you. Here it is, all together, just with the Psi Blades by themselves. Okay, so you can actually hear the same sound right now if you set your main menu background to Artanis and just wait long enough. Here's a quick excerpt of that. Okay, now we don't always get it right the first time. Initially, I tried for the Psi Blade a recording I did of a stunt airplane doing aerobatics. Here's the raw sound. Okay, and if you slow it down, you can kind of get that Psi Blade buzz. Here it is. And to make it a continuous looping sound, you just scrub backwards and forwards over it forever. Here's the final sound I ended up with. Okay, I actually ended up shelving that sound. I didn't end up using it for the kind of the idling sound because I thought it was a little too raw and just too growly and too threatening for his idling sound. But I did end up going back to it later, as we'll see in a second here. Meanwhile, in that very same cutscene, Artanis, he raises his blade. What sound do we use for that? Just the normal Psi Blade sound? The point is, we don't know until we know why he's raising the blade. Why does he raise the blade? Is it because he's lighting up a dark, mysterious passageway? Or is it because he's about to cheer? No, he's actually raising the Psi Blade to be intimidating, to be menacing. So the sound itself has to be menacing and intimidating. It should growl at you. Sounds can actually define emotional moments within the narrative. So here's an example of that scene with the normal Psi Blade sound and then kind of the growling, menacing Psi Blade sound. So this is actually one of my favorite areas to explore as a sound designer. There are several moments like this in the game. Please keep your ear out for them. I think they're more satisfying to find than even all the audio Easter eggs that we put in the game. Okay, up next, new units, sounds for new units. We're not going to go through all of them. These are some of the fan favorites, and the ones that have garnered the most audio feedback. The tricky part with creating sounds for units is that we always have to take into account their context and their usage. So for example, how fast does this unit fire? What's its cooldown time? Is it an early game unit, a mid-game, late-game unit? Is it a harass unit? Is it a support unit? What's the typical army composition? So we're always keeping these things in mind when we design sounds for units. First up, the Protoss. Sound designer Sean Bernardo had a big hand here. He's right there. The Reaver and Dragoon make their return in campaign. The Reaver was a lot of fun to work on and revisit because we got to hear Blizzard employee number 14, Glenn Stafford's original vocalizations for the StarCraft 1 Reaver. That was a lot of fun. The Adept, her attack sounds have been updated since the beta. She does kind of this throwing, tossing motion, and so I suggested to Sean, maybe try a sporting type element to give her something different, but I'm not gonna tell you what it is because I think it'll spoil it. So here it is, take a look.
Awaiting instructions. Initiating. Confirmed. Noktai.
Najakar Mina. The Templar march. Faith before fear. Porzalah.
Okay, for the Terran, we've updated the Liberator sounds, most of them done by Ed up here. The Reaper sounds, the KDA charge, I updated, and its timer I updated. Here we go.
Will do, Command. Confirm.
Attention! We read you. Course set.
Got something for me to kill? I love it when a plan comes together. I'm listening.
Okay, actually I should mention that's a debug map, and the units are invincible. The weapons aren't really that weak. So. Okay, finally the Lurker. The Lurker deserves his own slide because we got the most feedback on the sound for the Lurker than any other unit in StarCraft 2. The problem was that you couldn't hear when the Lurker was attacking you. In fact, I got a personal visit from community casters Zombie Grub and Rifkin at my office to tell me about this issue. So we fixed it. The issue was the original sounds of the Lurker spikes from Wings of Liberty wasn't really designed for multiplayer. So we took that, we remastered it, made it punchier. Here's the original sound from Liberty. And here's the remastered sound for Legacy. And we also changed the range so that even if your unit is way in the top corner of the screen, as far as you can get it, and the Lurker is off screen, you can still hear it being attacked. Here we go.
Keep your Can't wait. You got it.
All right. Thank you very much. That's it for my portion. Up next is Lawrence Peacock and his very special guest.
Hello and welcome to Blizzcon 2015. Please remain seated. Thank you.
Whoa. Being mainly a Terran player, that guy just scared the crap out of my Marines. Any fellow Terran players out there? All right, we'll have to play sometime. Are you guys having a good time? Come on, I can't hear you. That's better. Hi, I'm Lawrence Peacock. I'm a senior sound designer here at Blizzard, and I love my job. I get to work on games such as STARCRAFT for a company that cares so much about the quality of games. I get to help bring to life some of these amazing creatures and characters that the artists and designers work so hard on. And the best part is that I get to create sounds that all of you get to enjoy while playing the game. And that is a huge honor. Now today, I want to demonstrate how we take a basic sound and turn it into something completely different. Then, we're going to break down the sounds to the video and just to show you what we do. Now, I have a basic philosophy on sound design. I call it the 3 C's. There's context. Does the sound fit the scale, the perspective, and scope of the game object? Then you've got continuity. Does the sound fit in the StarCraft universe? I mean, I've made a lot of sounds that were great sounding sounds that just didn't fit in the universe. And then there's character. Character is the fun part. It's the creative part. It's what brings the emotion to the object. And it's also, it's what it brings the unit to life. Now, when people learn what I do for a living, I'm often asked, where do we get our sounds from? I mean, it's not like we can go in our backyard and record a Colossus walking around. If only it were that easy. Well, as you saw from Evan's video earlier, we go out in the field and record a lot of cool sounds. We'll hit air shows and record helicopters, big jets, and little jets. We'll record stuff in our own garage, like a welder, for example, that became a sound in that cutscene you just saw. We also hit we go out and record a lot of animals like tigers and lions and other exotics. And then we record a lot of stuff in our studio at work. And we bring whatever objects we can find. For example, I brought some football pads in that later became the sound for the Protoss armor movement in some of the cutscenes. And then we use a lot of synthesizers and samplers such as Reactor and Kima to process and morph these sounds into something new and exciting. And here, as an example of that, remember that bird sound from Evan's video? This guy? Whoops, sorry, I need to solo this. Remember, this bird sound became the Protoss alarm sound on board the Spear of Adun. Pretty amazing. Now I could talk, so moving on, we also have a large library of sounds to draw from as well to fill in the cracks. Now, I almost forgot. Being a sound designer, it is a requirement that we have to embarrass the hell out of our girlfriends, spouses, or whoever else is with us at any given time. What do I mean by that? When we go to a hardware store, we don't go to buy a shovel. No. We go to listen to the shovel. You'll find us in the hardware aisles tapping on stuff. Tap, 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 tap. Meanwhile, people are walking around looking at us going, this guy is crazy. I think he's right. We are a little crazy. Now, if you get us into a toy store, well, we're kind of like a 7-year-old on a sugar high running rampant through the store, because we'll run through and find fun little toys like this. You know, I could talk about this all day, but I'm sure you'd rather have me show you how we do it. So, give me a second to set this up real quick. All right, my stand kind of fell down. All right. So, I have these little, this bell tree here that I'm going to record and turn into something, well, completely different. So if you guys could be quiet just for a moment while I record this, that would be awesome. All right. Let's see what we get. All right, that's good. Let me just trim this sound up a little bit. Bring up the volume a little bit. So just so you know, I have no tricks up my sleeve here. Here's the sound I just recorded. All right, so I'm going to take this sound and throw it into another program I like. And this program is going to take the sound and re-synthesize it using a whole bunch of sine waves. In order for me to do this, I have to use a little program that I wrote called Drag and Dropper. So I'm going to take it over here and drag it in here. Like so. Okay. Now I'm going to, let me open up this program called Morphine. So now I can drag it into Morphine. Now we need to analyze the sound. All right, let me make a couple tweaks here real quick. All right, so now I have this basic sound, hopefully. All right, it's almost there. Let me slow it down a little bit. Right, that's a usable element, I think. I think I can make something with that. So let's go ahead and record it down. All right, that's good. So now, I'm going to take it into another program I like to use to process it further. Now, this is a program it's called a granular synthesizer, and what it does, it just messes with the sound even more to create something even cooler. So, let's open up Pad Shop. And this one I can drag straight into. So I need to trim up the sound a little bit here again. All right. And so now, if everything goes as planned, we should have something cool. So we have a cool little ambience element for the video we just saw. And that's pretty much that's just one of many ways we use to make something new out of something basic. Thank you. Now, moving on, let's go ahead and break down the sounds of the video we just saw. Give me a second to get that set up here. All right. So in order for, because of time constraints, I had to condense this session down a lot to make it simpler. This had a lot more tracks before. Now, let's go ahead and start with the footsteps. All right, those are decent steps, but it's missing something. Remember what I talked about earlier about the character layer? Well, for this, I created, using some samplers and synthesizers and playing with pitch, I added a little layer that adds basically a little melodic element to it that makes them a little more menacing. So if I add that in now, we have makes it a little more menacing. So I like those steps now. Now as far as, we have the beam where he comes and kind of scans across the screen. I gotta remember to talk in the microphone, I guess. Here, hold on. So for the beam, I'll talk a little bit about it, but mostly the technique that I just showed on how I did the ambience, I used the same techniques to create a lot of the elements in the beam. So I'm not gonna talk about it too much, but let's go ahead and play it and hear what it sounds like. Right, that's a decent beam sound, but again, it's missing something. It's missing that character layer. And for the character, let's just go ahead and isolate this. I'll just play the character layer here. Let me talk about it for a second. Again, I used a lot of granular synthesizers and samplers and played with pitch to create elements that give movement as he goes back and forth across the screen. I even threw in the original Colossus voice from the game to stay true to the StarCraft universe. Then for the voice, it's just, the voice part is just a voice running through a vocoder. And then, there's also the arc welder sound that I recorded, as well as some fireworks I recorded and some few other sounds. But the whole layer sounds like this.
Hello and welcome to Blizzcon 2015.
And so, now when you take that, and let's go ahead and throw everything together now. Our footsteps, the beam on, the loop part of the beam, and the character layer. So now, we've got
Hello and welcome to BlizzCon 2015. Please remain seated. Thank you.
And that pretty much is how we take a scene and build up on it, or that's how we build a lot of the sounds. Now, the room you just saw is what's called the War Council Room. It's on the Spear of Adun. It's where you select your troops and units and your various upgrades for your missions. Now, to talk more about the Spear of Adun is Ed Serrato.
Thank you. Give it up for Larry. Hi, I'm Ed Serrato, Senior Sound Designer here at Blizzard. I started with Heart of the Swarm, and now here I am today, proud to present to you some sounds from Legacy of the Void. Let's get right to it. Spear of Adun, a marvel of Kalai engineering, or so they tell me. What I've assembled here for you today are some clips demonstrating some of the practical sounds I used to reveal the Spear of Adun's launch from hibernation. Now, as my colleagues have amply demonstrated today, we like to gather a lot of source. And once we have enough source, we go through editing, various forms of processing, pitch shifting, adding reverb, and other effects until we hit just the right tone. There's a nuance of what we're trying to convey, the space we want to fill. And now, the making of the Spear of Adun's launch from Ire. But wait. All right. So now we've got our ancient Ark ship out of the garage and into orbit. This is now your primary mode of transportation throughout the campaigns. So let's talk next a little bit about the upgrade panel. This is the interface you will use to customize the Spear of Adune's abilities for battle. Now, in coming up with sounds for the user interface, I used a number of synthesizers, samplers, and through keyboard performance and manipulation, I came up with a number of sounds for the button rollovers, the various ability selections, and these really cool moving backgrounds. Now, the key to a good user interface experience is first and foremost user feedback, deliberate choices, the sense of weight or power underneath your fingers when you make those choices. You want to feel something when you click those buttons, emotion, all of those things. So let's have a look. All right, here we are, newly acquired, dangerously upgraded, intergalactic traveling fortress. I think it's time to take this thing out for a little joyride. Let's see what she can do. Thank you. The Spear of Adun. Thank you very much, BlizzCon! I hand it back over to Jason.
All right. We're going to bring the band back right now. Cool. My name is Jason Hayes, and I'm a senior music composer at Blizzard Entertainment. All right. Thank you. So I go way back with StarCraft, all the way to the very beginning, in fact. The first game I worked on at Blizzard was the original StarCraft from 1998. I'm big StarCraft fans. Very cool. So, you know, on that game I worked mainly on the cinematics and also the story of the Protoss. So what a thrill it is to come back now, 17 years later, and rejoin to work on this music for the epic conclusion of the StarCraft II trilogy that features the Protoss at its very center, Legacy of the Void. So, all right. I've got some amazing musicians that have made their way onto the stage. I want to introduce them to you right now. Here at my left is the absolutely fantastic, dazzling, and very talented cello player Tina Guo. Tina has played on so many of our musical scores, and we're really lucky to have her here. On my right is the phenomenal and very passionate ethnic winds instrumentalist, Pedro Eustache. Pedro is a featured soloist on Legacy of the Void. And on the end, playing taikos and keyboard, is Michael Patty. So Michael is a co-composer with me on Legacy of the Void, and together we've had a great time capturing the sound of the Protoss and also helping to tell their epic story. So we want to play one more song for you guys. We're going to close with a theme that represents hope. The Protoss are making a final stand, and they're clinging to the possibility that they just might recapture their former glory and return to a time when their culture can once again shine like a constellation. This is called My Life for Ire. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to have a Q&A with the panel members. Let's bring them back on stage. Great job, Pedro.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay, Q&A section. We got a few minutes for questions. Anybody?
Anybody?
Right over there.
Bueller.
Hi, I'm a huge fan of all the original StarCraft sounds, specifically like unit acknowledgements. Everyone can picture in their minds the sound of a Zergling or a Hydralisk when you tell them what to do. And I was wondering how you develop unique sounds that people will always remember and identify with that character. Because I feel like with StarCraft 2 Zerg units, there's a lot of slimy, slithery things, and maybe it's because I haven't been playing it for 15 years yet, but they don't stick out as iconically in my mind as the originals did.
You want to talk about the original sounds? So Jason actually worked on the original StarCraft. So.
Yeah, I was lucky to work on the sounds on the original game along with Glenn Stafford. And, you know, what's really fun about working on sounds that try to be unusual and different is that you can find, they talked a lot about doing strange things like recording an airplane and pitching it down and scrubbing it. So for the Hydralisk specifically, there's a voice transformer box that was designed by Roland that you basically would change the pitch of your voice or the resonance of your voice. But if you use that box and you hiss in it, like go into the voice transformer, it doesn't know how to deal with the pitch. And so you'd end up with this crazy, sound, and it made the sound of the Hydralisk. So it made a really signature thing for that. So it was great to find an unusual way to get a sound out of that box that it was never meant to make. So anyway, Hydralisk story.
Okay.
Well, thanks.
Hey guys, so both the Terran Marine and Protoss Zealot are both big kind of armored characters. How do you kind of make sure that each one sounds unique and not too similar?
Well, Terran they have their own kind of precedence for a sonic sensibility. Same with the Protoss side, and same with the Zerg. They all have kind of these unique sonic signatures. There's no like magic ball or magic crystal that we can use or a special plugin. It's just a lot of listening. We kind of like channel. We're like the crystal that everything gets channeled and filtered through, right? So. You know, a lot of times it's just a lot of listening. We play the game a lot, make sure things don't poke out too much. If they do, we'll go ahead and readjust. A lot of iteration on those sounds. There's no magic answer or magic filter that I could put on it, but it is just based on our own sensibilities and by playing the game a lot.
Awesome, thanks.
You're welcome.
My question was about the Liberator and how it came in the beta. How difficult was it for you to create the sounds with a quick turnover versus time that you create for the other sounds? You have like almost a year or two in development for these other sounds, but the turnover that you had to do for this new unit that came out.
You want to talk about the Liberator? The Liberator, okay, so these multiplayer units are constantly changing throughout the game. They're usually done at the very end because they change so rapidly. So if you played the beta, you probably know there are a lot of units in there that didn't make it to the final game. So we usually leave the multiplayer units to the end just for efficiency's sake and just juggling our own bandwidth and managing time. So it is just we rely on David Kim and the balance team to inform us this changed, this changed. This is how they behave now. So it's always within context that we need to create these sounds for units.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question is about the difference between multiplayer and single player. In multiplayer, you obviously have to make like communicating clearly the kind of top priority, I guess. But in single player, maybe you have a little more room to move around. I'm wondering if like the fact that it's not competitive lets you do more with single player that you can't do with multiplayer.
Excellent question. Absolutely. Sky's the limit, as they say. But yes, we do. We have much more space and freedom to move around.
Thanks.
Yeah, actually that, in campaign, we can actually script some things to make room for sounds to poke through. So that's harder to do in multiplayer, but in campaign, because things are more scripted, we can actually carve out room and carve out sonic space for things to poke through better.
My question is, what sound processing programs would you recommend for like a fledgling sound designer that is not super expensive, that could kind of get, someone who wants to do Foley and that kind of a thing started off, not spending a lot of money?
Sure. I recommend using a software program called Reaper. It's a good low-cost DAW that's actually very powerful. Then as far as processing plugins, the program I called is called Morphine, the first one I used. At that you can find, like especially around Christmas time, they have it on sale for like 50, 60 bucks. Then the other one, Pad Shop from Steinberg, is about 70 bucks.
And my next question is, what microphones would you recommend for sound effect recording?
Oh, that's a hard question. It's how much money you want to spend. But if you can spend, it's not necessarily what microphone and what gear you have. It's just getting out there and getting the sound. Because a good saying by a friend of mine is that any sound is better than no sound. I recommend getting a little Sony like M10. Is that what it's called? Whatever. It's a little portable, little digital recorder. Sounds awesome, and it's like a couple $100.
Thank you.
I think that's it. I think that's all the time we have. I'm sorry. We'll still be around the stage for a few minutes, so feel free to come up and chat with us, or feel free to find us wandering the floor. Come up and say hi. Thank you all so much for coming to the sound panel. There are all kinds of things happening on the VO stage all day today, and also upstairs in the Dolby Theater. It was a great experience. We couldn't have had it without your support, so thank you for making it so exhilarating for us today. Have a great rest of the Blizzcon.